Hey, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of The Geezer Proofer. And as I always like to start my shows with, you could choose to be a geezer or a beezer at any age. And a geezer is somebody who is stuck, who's not open to new ideas, who likes the way things always have been, and is really not open to change. And again, you could be a geezer at 20, you'd be a geezer at 10, or you could be a geezer at 100. And a beezer is somebody who be in the moment, be curious, be relevant. And today's guest is all of those things. We are the Beezer duo. Janine Vanderburg has been on my show before talking about ageism, and ageism applies to young people, it applies to older people, and how we as a society need to start focusing on stage and talent and not just on age. And because it's back to school season, in fact, in Arizona, I think kids have already started going back to school because it's so fucking hot. But for most of the country, back to school season is starting in September. And one of the things that I've come to learn over the many years that I've been on this earth is that having facts is so much more powerful than having passion and emotion about a topic. And if you have both, if you're passionate about something and you know your facts, then you have the ability to make change, like real meaningful change in the world. So today we're doing something really fun and a little bit different, is that Janine and I are going to go back and forth presenting 10 facts about aging and longevity. And then there's going to be a little bonus section at the end. So I suggest you listen or watch all the way until we wrap up. And just before we get started, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'd love to give a shout out to a woman-owned company called Simulacra. I probably pronounced that wrong. Their website is www.simulacra, simulacra.nyc. And it's a woman-owned company that makes clothing. And the top that I'm wearing, which those of you who are listening are not going to be able to see, but it's a purple top, goes with my brand colors, that was made by Simulacra. And I bought it at a vintage show, even though it's not a vintage piece. And it is going to now become my new official top for my podcast recording. So thank you, Simulacra. I did buy it. They didn't gift it to me, just in case the FTC is listening. This is an unpaid announcement, and love it. Check them out. So moving right along, Janine, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you, who you are, what you've done in your past life, and what you do today, and then we'll jump right into our fun facts.
You bet. Hi, everybody. And Nancy, great to be back with you. And I love that top. And I just wrote down Simulacra on my notepad here, and I'm going to check it out right after this podcast. So my name is Janine Vanderburg. I currently am CEO of an organization called Encore Roadmap. And what I do mostly now is talk to employers and brands about being age inclusive, about the business case for older workers and intergenerational teams. What it builds on is over 30 years of working in social and organizational change for my former social sector consulting company that I founded back in 1987 and ran for over 3 decades. And then I left that to start a national anti-ageism initiative, and national being the United States, that called Changing the Narrative. And basically, what that means is changing the story that we tell about ourselves and that we allow other people to tell about us about getting older. So basically what I'm rolling over is that time spent working on strategy and organizational and social change that I then directed into an anti-ageism initiative. And through that, I realized how much companies were missing out on the power of older people in their, not only in their workforce, but as consumers and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm trying to call attention to now through Encore Roadmap. And that's how I met Nancy. So I'm really excited to be with you on this.
And the way to make change, it really starts with building awareness. So hence today's topic, and just sharing with you some fun facts, real verified facts about aging mostly in America today. So I'll get started. Fact number one is we are an aging nation. And for the first time ever in American history, adults will outnumber children by the year 2034. And if you follow me on my blog or other things that I write, or you listen to the podcast, you'll also learn that the number of centenarians is on the upswing. That is people who are going to live to be 100 or older. So again, that is a hard, cold fact. So deal with it, that older people are here to stay. If we have good habits, we're all going to get older. And because people are having fewer children, there will actually be more older people than younger people by the year 2034. So Janine, what is your number one fun fact?
So my number one fact is what we are missing and missing out on when we ignore the first fact that you presented, and that is the power that older people can provide, both as workforce and as consumers, the longevity economy. So and this is not a fun fact. This is the percentage of people who have either seen or experienced workplace age discrimination. I'm going to pause for a moment to let you listening think about what that might be. And then, are you shocked to find out that it's 78%? And I felt compelled to research that fact after I was doing workshop after workshop on ageism as part of changing the narrative. And people would come up to me and say, that workplace age discrimination thing happened to me, it happened to my partner, it happened to my dad. And I was like, is this a thing? Because I've always been self-employed, so the only person I could discriminate against was myself. But when I dug into it, yes, AARP and others have done studies, and basically over 3/4 of people have either seen or experienced age discrimination in their own workplaces.
Yeah, and I'm an independent contractor as well, and I think you've heard the story where I was on a call with a research firm, and the researcher said we didn't focus on boomers for the purposes of the study because they'll all be gone soon. I'm like, where am I going? Do you know something that I don't know? Am I talking to the Grim Reaper? And this was an intelligent, seasoned, and I have no idea how old he was, but to make a statement like that was just appalling. I actually took myself off of mute and I called him out on it because nobody else was saying anything. So I think that I have a lot of contemporaries who are afraid to speak up because they don't want to be perceived as crotchety old people. But I think a lot of it is the way you deliver the message. And as you know from knowing me, I use humor sometimes as a way of deflecting things, but humor can be educational. So my fact number two is there is a population called the super agers. And those are people who are in their 80s, but in scientific studies seem to have the same functionality and mental and physical capacity as younger people. And what they have in common, like Janine and I do, they have an active lifestyle, they challenge themselves, they're social butterflies, so they don't suffer from loneliness as much as some of their contemporaries do. And last but not least, they do occasionally indulge that people who drink, not to excess, are 23% less likely to develop Alzheimer's. So not that I'm advocating for those listeners who are sober to go out and buy a beer, but I think that's an interesting study. And there are all kinds of new studies that are being done in the scientific community because now they have a population that's large enough to study, like the Blue Zones Project, like the study around the super agers. So I think that's really kind of fascinating. What's your number two, Janine?
Well, before I say that, can I say,
Oh,
as
yeah,
someone
absolutely.
who's married to someone who has a small vineyard, I was happy to hear part of your facts. I'm going to go to my fact number two, and this was stunning. I literally heard this on a panel that I was on with Catherine Collinson of Transamerica Institute when she was releasing this stat from their most recent study. Again, this is not a fun fact, but it's a serious fact we ought to do something about. What is the age at which 1/3 of employers in the US think that someone is too old to hire? Pause, think about it, write it down if you're at home. 58. Can you imagine, especially given the facts that Nancy's already presented about we've got an aging society, we've got super agers, of a hiring manager thinking at age 58, you are too old to hire. So
And
just,
in certain industries, I think the number is
okay,
lower. I just recently read that in tech, that number is actually 45.
yeah.
So whenever I tell that to women who are in their early 40s working in tech companies, that's appalling to them that they could be aged out in 2 years.
And I actually hear from women who are in tech, who kind of follow me on LinkedIn, who are like, whoa, I'm dealing with this already. So Nancy, you're right on.
Yeah. And,
We got to do something about it. We got to
yeah,
do.
the ad industry as well. All right. So, and the name of this episode, by the way, is Fabulous, Frightening, and Fun Facts. So I tend to be like, they're all frightening, but I tend to be the minister of fun. So that's where I come
That
in.
makes
But
me
yes,
the
some of them,
minister of frightening.
yes.
I don't know
So
if I like that
that's where
title.
Janine and I make a really good duo. Like, and there's enough place in this ageism awareness world for all kinds of personalities. It takes a village. It's going to take a village to educate all people about the issues surrounding rampant ageism. So this is one of my favorites as we're talking about spending, and I'm talking about my purple top. As far as consumer spending statistics, older consumers have significant purchasing power and wealth. And this is a real scientific a real study. The silent generation, people 76 and older, spend $163 billion annually. That's billion with a B. Boomers, 55 to 75, spend 548 billion annually. And the bottom line is that people with disposable income tend to be older. But the reality is people in advertising, and this is a statistic that I found, fewer than 10% of the people who work in the advertising industry are over 50, and that number may actually be as low as 6%. So here are companies developing product, and then they're hiring younger people to market those products. And they're marketing them to generations that may be active on social media, but don't necessarily have the money to buy the products that they're marketing. And I recently applied to be an affiliate marketer for a company called Free People. Love the brand. My
Love free.
closet looks like a Free People store. And I got rejected to be an affiliate marketer because their target tends to be young, skinny women, and I don't fit that target. But not to be totally negative, there are companies like Andy Swimwear or some of the skincare companies that are getting much more diverse and inclusive in their stock art photography, in their marketing approaches. And there are products, you can't say a product is just for young people or just for older people. I would argue that people who like bougie hippie chic, which is how I define Free People, range in age from my granddaughter's age up to 100. And you're missing out on a huge percentage of that multi-billion-dollar spend if you're only selling to one segment of the market.
So Nancy, you know that you're singing my song. I mean, I personally have probably about 3 or 4 Free People sweaters in my wardrobe. But so now you've instigated me to go ahead and apply to be an affiliate. I'm not sure what it would be, but now I'm going to pursue this. But and so I just want to, an encouraging note is I've had several brands approach me in the last year who have done that really ageist segmentation, who are starting to think we are missing out on that longevity economy. So I think that is the promising and good news. But having shared on the good news, I'm going to go now to another frightening fact. And this is what the cost of workplace age discrimination is to the US economy. So we're taking this economic hit, $850 billion. I mean, that's something that if employers were more conscious about workplace age discrimination, and back to your point, to the power of longevity economy, not only would they be making more money, but they would be helping the economy. So frightening fact, trying to turn it into a positive. Employers and brands, you can do something about it. Hire Nancy, hire me. Sorry, probably wasn't supposed to say that.
Absolutely. And let us market your products for you.
Yeah.
Um, I think I've told this story in another episode where I asked somebody about food influencers over 50, and she said, well, you should just advertise during the day on TV during soap operas, because that's when those people are home. I'm like, well, I'm those people and I'm not home. I'm out at a professional conference. So those people, what does
Right.
that mean? Like,
It's the kind of ageist assumptions that people make, and that's part of our job, is to break it down.
I
So,
know Janine and I were geeking out before the recording started. And again, those of you who are listening aren't seeing this, but she and I both customized our Zoom backgrounds for this episode, which is a good segue to my next fact, which is that close to 70% of people over 50 bought at least one tech product last year. And 72% of our generation say they know how to use technology. Does that mean we know how to edit video or dance on TikTok? No, but our generation were the first developers of the personal computer, the first websites. So making an assumption that older people don't do tech is just clearly erroneous, and the stats back that up. So that was my fact number 4, both fun and frightening at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
and so I can't believe how your fact number 4 is so close to or aligned with my fact number 4, which is about this notion about willingness to learn new things. So AARP and some economists did a study, again, workforce related. This is what I'm most passionate about. And what they found out was, contrary to the stereotype that is out there, over 2/3 of older workers are willing to learn and actually want to learn new things on the job. And the percentage is even higher among Black and Latino employees. So, you've got a group of people actually in your workforce right now who are very engaged and who are saying, we want to learn new things. And that's over 2/3. So,
Yeah, and what I often do with people who grew up in the digital era, and again, I'm not going to, typecast anybody by age, because there are people who are my age who know a lot more about technology than I do. But what I say is, the same way we as a society have learned to incorporate non-English speakers into our learning system, people who are neurodivergent into our learning system. I will say to people, I am not going to learn by watching a YouTube video, or you're sending me an email how to. I'm going to learn by sitting side by side with you, watching you do something, my mimicking what you do. And that's actually how I learned how to make stories and reels. I
yeah.
found it it didn't take that long, but I led by saying, this is how I learn. And the first time a young person, who happened to be my daughter, she shouldn't admit to this, rolled her eyes when she was trying to teach me something. I said, you teach ESL, and I'm sure you don't roll your eyes when you're teaching
That's
a
a good,
native
yeah,
Spanish speaker. And yes, I'm her mother, so she's allowed to do the eye roll. But I
right.
do think that younger people who are training, and again, I don't want to typecast people who are familiar with technology, teaching people who are not familiar with technology how to do things, just need to accommodate their learning style. And
And
that's not a big ask.
And if I can ask, if I can add to that, Nancy, that I think it's important to realize that just because we're older, there isn't just a one size fits all learning style. I, like you, am very hands on. I actually like to read instructions, try it for myself, and that kind of thing. My husband is a total, every time there's a problem in the vineyard, he's on YouTube, he's figuring out all the people and, that kind of thing. So I think, even among people who are older, there are a lot of varieties of ways. So to me, the important takeaway is we should not be making assumptions about how someone will learn or about their tech use based on their age.
Exactly, exactly. And I think, the takeaway of asking everybody, how do you learn best, is just a kind, inclusive, human question to ask, and
Totally.
not assume that somebody isn't getting something because they're old or because they're young. It may just be, in fact, I was explaining that to my 8-year-old granddaughter, that everybody's brains are wired differently. So the more you understand how somebody's brain is wired, the faster and easier you can build any kind of relationship with that person.
Yeah, there you go.
So, which is why I dressed as a circuit board on Halloween a couple of years ago. I said, we are circuit boards. Basically, men sometimes process things differently from women.
Yeah.
It all depends on your unique learning
The next
style.
time I see you in real life, Nancy, I want to see you in the circuit board costume.
All right, cool. Maybe I'll wear it for one of my podcasts.
Perfect.
And last but not least, because everybody loves hearing about sex, you can't do a geezer-proof podcast without some mention of sex. 85% of men aged 60 to 69 are sexually active, 60% age 70 to 79, and 32% of those 80 and over. And it's slightly lower for women, but you can't assume that just because somebody's over 50 that their vagina or their penis is drying up and falling off. Like, we are sexually active beings, some more so than others. Again, it's like tech, everybody learning, everybody's got a slightly different style. But just like alcohol in moderation, sex can help people live longer and reduce the risk of heart disease and stroke. I am not a doctor. I'm not making any recommendations, but it is a real substantiated fact by science.
So Nancy, why am I feeling that that is the fact that most people are going to remember from this podcast? And now I'm going to go to a totally boring fact after this. But one that you earlier talked about, what we are passionate about. And as I think everyone can tell from listening to me on this, I'm very passionate about workforce issues. I'm very passionate about, advocating about the benefits of older workers and intergenerational teams. And one of the things that I'm really disheartened about, we've got elections going on actually around the world right now. And we know that ageism is real and workplace age discrimination is real. And I've been monitoring all of this. The number of candidates in campaigns who are talking about this issue, zero. I challenge any of you to just, whether it's your local elections, statewide elections, national elections, to go ahead and listen and see if anybody is talking about ageism in workplace. If you find someone, email me. But I felt so passionately about it that I started a candidate questionnaire, and I'm partnering with the Encore network. We're getting it out next week, of just questions to ask your local candidates about, do you support, for example, do you support laws to strengthen workplace age discrimination? So
Love
stay
that.
tuned. Stay
Love
tuned.
that. And I think that, being employed is sexy because it ultimately gives us more spending power, which ultimately impacts the economy of the country and of the world. So here is our little bonus round, after the 10 fun facts, is that, and if anybody would like a copy of our fun facts with the sources, just email me at thegeezerproofer@gmail.com, and I will be happy to send you the source list of where these all came from. But here is my bonus section. I recently had a conversation with a woman who said it was disgusting that Madonna still wears lingerie on stage at her age. She happens to be the same age as I am. And I said, well, why is that disgusting? It is still it's part of her brand. That's just who she is. So I cringe every time I see an article about how to dress after 50, what to wear, what kind of makeup to wear after 50, as if it's inappropriate. So here are some fun facts about celebrities and people in the media that I just love because they're still rocking it, in some cases well after 60. Giorgio Armani, is in his 80s and still running his fashion business. The founder of The Real Real was over 50 when she launched her business, Designer Resale. Martha Stewart, who was just at the Olympics with Snoop Dogg, started her business after 50. And then you have the music people like Cher, Helen Mirren, Robert Redford, Robert De Niro, Meryl Streep, Dustin Hoffman just turned, I think, 87 yesterday. So there are all these people in Hollywood who are still doing amazing work well after 50. There is an investor, Alan Patrikoff, who just recently started a fund specifically to invest in age tech. And he is well up in his 80s, just got married for the second time after his wife passed away. And then my fourth category, the first being fashion, then Hollywood, then the investment community, and then last but not least, me and Janine, and the people like us. Follow us on LinkedIn, please, because we also are part of a large and growing community of anti-ageism activists or aging awareness activists who are positive, who really are trying to change the way people think and the way people act. And as being the ages that we are, we've seen other social movements that have been really successful. And this is the last frontier of changing perceptions. And to Janine's point, we're just not hearing enough of it in the media, except for stuff that we all are seeing and hearing about candidates being old. So this is a really good segue, Janine, into a conversation that we've been having and your recent article on Medium about the current elections. And without getting overly political, because that is not our jam, we do want to make you aware of some of what's been going on with the announcement of Tim Walz as Kamala's running mate. So hit it, Janine.
You bet. So much of the conversation about elections has been too old, too old, too old, too old, right? And the reality is when you simply look at someone's age, not about their ability, not about their policy, not about their competency, and you simply say they are too old, that's ageism. So if anyone is wondering what ageism is when you judge someone about their age, not about their ability, not about their competency. And in the case of elected officials or candidates, when you judge them, when you don't judge them based on their policy, right? So we're going to set that aside right now. And I just want to say how enthusiastic I was when I saw Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who was just announced this week as the candidate for Vice President Kamala Harris to join her on the Democratic ticket. And I watched him bound onto the stage on Tuesday when they did their first rally. And he is high-fiving it. He's waving to the crowd. He's dancing on the stage. And I'm like, that stereotype that older people are low energy, down the tubes. And then he does, he does this thing of calling the other side weird. And all of a sudden, he's like the subject of all of these memes. He's driving all this social media. And I'm like, that stereotype about older people, digitally incompetent, down the tubes. My favorite was when the media, the traditional media, started saying, he looks so old. Now the guy's 60, right? Here's his immediate slapback that goes all over on social media. And he says, yeah, as a high school teacher, I supervised the lunchroom for 20 years. You don't leave that job with a full head of hair, trust me. So it was the combination of the slapback, the energy, and really redefining what does it mean to look age 60, to be age 60. It has nothing to do with age, and it has to do with, energy and ability and policy and everything else. So I ended up writing a short article on Medium this week about, Tim Walz. I'm giving him my award of the week for reframing aging and reframing what age 60 looks like.
And then there
Fabulous.
were the weird comparisons. We're like,
Right.
well, Kamala is 57 and
59. They were born in the same year. They're born in
oh,
the same
okay.
year. And
But it's
people
like,
are like, she looks young, he looks old.
why are you comparing this person to that person?
Right.
Like when you were in fourth grade, did you say, oh, that 8-year-old looks older than this 8-year-old, or they're taller? Yeah, like diversity is what makes up the world. Whenever someone
Right.
says to me, you don't look 68, I'm like, yes, I do. This is the new 68. This is the Nancy 68. If you want to look like me, I'll give you my tricks.
Right.
But like, you know,
Yeah.
to even say that somebody should be or should look or should dress a certain way because
Right.
of the number on their birth certificate, you'll often hear me use the expression, how many trips have you taken around the sun? Because if I were looking for directions or recommendations in Denver, of course I would ask somebody who's lived in Denver or traveled to Denver. So we just need to start looking at people who have
Right.
seen like the insurance commercial. I know a lot of things because I've seen a lot of things.
Yep. You're
That,
singing my song, Nancy. You're singing my song. Yep.
yeah. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so thank you for that. Again, hopefully we did not get too political, that the trolls will not attack us. And if they do, so be
Block,
it.
delete, block, delete is my answer to trolls. And one of the things, and you've indicated this before, in our work, championing age inclusion, there are trolls there too. I've had people say awful things, and and that's where I came up with block, delete. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life.
Exactly, exactly.
Happily ending ageism. So.
That's a great segue. So after you've listened, we hope you will be inspired to be less geezerly, which is critical of other people's beliefs, stuck in the way you've always done things, mean-spirited, judgmental, and be a beezer and not a geezer. So Janine, if people want to read more of your stuff and get to know you better, how would you like them to reach out to you?
The best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, and it's literally Janine Vanderburg, and you can see my spelling here. Also, my website, encoreroadmap.com is the
I
best way.
love that name. And if you'd like to follow me or reach me, I'm going through a rebrand on October 9th, which happens to be Ageism Awareness Day. So stay tuned for that. But you can, if you'd like to be a guest, I plan on incorporating this 10 facts format in my podcast going forward. So no matter what you do for a living and no matter how old you are, if you have 5 interesting facts about any topic, please reach out to me at thegeezerproofer@gmail.com. And I have a very simple form that you could fill out if you would like to be a guest. And just remember in your day-to-day lives, be a beezer and not a geezer. You can also follow me at the OnSwitch, TheonSwitch. That's my handle until October 9th. I know I keep teasing this, something major happening on October 9th. So if you're listening to us after that, you already will know. But I'm building the suspense. And have a wonderful day. Hopefully we've opened your mind a little bit to new ways of thinking. And again, be a beezer, not a geezer. Peace out.